During the playoffs, the Denver Nuggets were the fourth best team in defensive rating, the third team that allowed the fewest second chance points, and the team that allowed the fewest points after turnovers. While it is true that this is a team with an already iconic offensive system, their defensive performance is what really allowed them to win. Here are some of the keys to how the Nuggets cemented their defensive system. Since the 2010-2011 season, the team that has gone on to win the NBA during each season has been at least top 4 in defensive rating. During that regular season, absolutely every year. The Heat, the Spurs, the Warriors, the Cavaliers, the Raptors, all have been teams with great defensive specialists who were able to tighten the screws in the decisive moments. This fact serves to put into perspective how necessary this aspect of the game is to become champions. The Nuggets were the first team since the Dallas Mavericks to win the championship without meeting this statistic. But even so, the team's defensive work during the playoffs has been much more demanding than during the regular season. The Nuggets have come across many superstars on their way to the top, including Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo, and Jimmy Butler, players who have been able throughout their careers to score with ease, but who nevertheless have struggled mightily against a team that a priori wasn't as potent defensively. But without great defense, Denver would not have been able to lift the Larry O'Brien for the first time in their history. Before we jump into Denver's playoff matchups, let's not forget to treat the algorithm. You know what to do if you like this video. During the first round of the playoffs, the Denver Nuggets faced the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Anthony Edwards-led team reached the first round through the play-in, so expectations were not very high. The Nuggets didn't have much work to do to contain an offense based primarily on the young shooting guard. Michael Malone began experimenting with help-side defense situations without jumping into the 2-on-1, but instead showing the help defense once players reach the paint. This system offers more defensive balance and allows the holes created between the defense to be reduced. The Timberwolves were no match for an offensive system that had only just begun to come together. However, the story changed when Denver faced the Phoenix Suns. The Arizona's team, led by Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, had two capable scorers who also specialized in one-on-one situations. And that is precisely why Phoenix's offensive system has been based all season long on mid-range shooting. In fact, their dominance from that type of attack is so high that the Nuggets had to take action early on. The Suns shot 21.8 mid-range shots per game in the playoffs, first in the league by an absurd margin. The second most mid-range shots attempted per game were the Atlanta Hawks, with 13.5 attempts per game. Only the most talented players in the NBA can make that shot efficiently. But the Nuggets took this into account in setting up their defensive system. The lack of outside threat from players like Terrence Ross, who shot 27% on three-pointers, Kevin Durant himself at 22%, Chris Paul at 20%, Torrey Craig at 14%, as well as TJ Warren, caused a second Denver player to be ready to make a defensive help on ISO situations. Denver's defense is like a sponge. When you apply force, it deforms, but as soon as you stop applying force, it returns to its natural position. Against Phoenix, Denver had a chance to offload the weak side of the court and be more focused on the stars. There were times when Devin Booker's incredible level of play allowed them to find advantages in these situations. And coincidentally, they were Phoenix's best minutes of the series. Also, the fact that the Nuggets were able to close the paint led to an improvement in defensive rebounding numbers, which, as we have already seen in our video about their offensive system, is the quickest way to gain advantages, thanks to Jokic's vision. Not only was Denver a better offensive team, but the Suns' offense was deflated by the defensive versatility of Michael Malone's players. Before the analysis of Western Conference Finals, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. As against Phoenix, the series against the Los Angeles Lakers in the Western Conference Finals was expected to be an offensive showout. And so it was, as the Nuggets averaged 118 points per game. Despite the sweep, the team of LeBron James and Anthony Davis put up a fight in every game. However, Davis struggled in some games of the series. His dominance was always noticeable in some parts of the game. But Denver's interior defense did not allow him to get the ball easily. As we have said, Denver's defenders are very interchangeable in the pick-and-roll game. LeBron James and Anthony Davis have, as well as Jokic and Murray, a great two-man game. But Denver's great ability to stay with their primary defender, in case of a screen, prevented this type of play so often. So Denver basically decided during the conference finals to go over all screens. This aggressiveness is necessary to stop players who are able to generate quick advantages, either by creating their own shot or through a pass. However, this extra effort depends on the players not involved in the screen performing adequately on the help side defense. Or in other words, that the sponge we have been talking about returns to its natural state. The height of the Denver players forced Davis to receive many times far from the hoop, which lowered his efficiency to a certain extent. Many times, Denver's defense faced bronze ISO situations on one side with the rest of their players on the other. This technique is very common in LeBron's team since his tenure in Miami. However, showing the help defense only near the rim seriously affected his efficiency, as he did not have the best series from three-point range. This aggressiveness on the screen also dampened the performance of D'Angelo Russell, who had a series to forget. LeBron's ability to be a magnet and then find the open player was thwarted by Michael Malone's defensive tactics. This series set Denver up to face the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals. However, the style of this series would be the complete opposite, as defense and slow games are Eric Spoelstra's specialty. Or in other words, he just wants the mud. The Heat were able to put their style on display during the first two games, even managing a win in the Colorado Heights. That would change completely, however, in the third game of the series. In a LeBron-like fashion, the Nuggets performed only defensive helps near the rim when Jimmy Butler had the ball in his hands. This situation also forced him to take more mid- and long-range shots, and also reduced his ability to go to the free throw line. This defense really affected Butler and the rest of his teammates, who shot an astounding 33% from the paint, taking away shots from the restricted area. This Denver system forced Miami to play with ball movement, trying to set up blind screens and using the great long-range shooting ability of the rotation players, like Gabriel Vincent and Duncan Robinson. However, Michael Malone continued to work on help defense, to reduce the recovering time after each help. On most half-court possessions, Miami was no longer able to find those gaps in the defense nor to generate them, and that inability turned into low-percentage shots. As against the Lakers, Malone tried to switch on as few screens as possible, increasing defensive aggressiveness and taking advantage of the speed of his players. However, in the case of switch, the large size and wingspan of players such as Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., and Jeff Green helped mitigate mismatches. Denver's defensive system will not go down in history. It's simply not on par with teams like the Miami Heat, for example. The offensive skills and craftiness of their players allow them to be unstoppable. However, the players have bad days on offense. The constant intense defenses of the playoffs mean that even the NBA's greatest talents have some forgettable performances. That's where the defensive aspect comes in. Michael Malone has managed with the tools at his disposal to build a fortress that is capable of fending off most attacks during the season. And those that he is not able to defend against, relax, the counterattack will come.